Let's start with the story before we take you to the Free State. Queen Elizabeth II's coffin has arrived at the St Giles Cathedral with members of the royal family. There is a service that is currently taking place, and the coffin will rest here for people to pay their respects for 24 hours now. The Queen passed away last week, and let's get more details on what happens next and speak to our correspondent Laura Makin-Isherwood, who's coming to us live from London. Laura, thank you so much for your time. I mean, we saw quite the procession making its way to the St Giles Cathedral. Let's talk about that moment and briefly what happens next as well.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, hasn't it, for Queen Elizabeth II since she passed away. She's been sat, of course, in Balmoral Castle for a time. Then she's been moved through Scotland, first to Holyrood House in Edinburgh, and now to St Giles Cathedral in the city. We saw pictures of that hearse moving up what's known as the Royal Mile, the final sort of part of that journey, with King Charles III and his three other siblings following along behind on foot. Now, there were crowds lining the streets. It was said to be quite quiet, very sombre and reflective there, but clearly thousands of people turning out to try to pay their respects to a monarch that was on the throne for 70 years, and also, I imagine, just take part in this absolute shift in history. Now, Queen Elizabeth II's coffin will remain at St Giles for 24 hours. It will then be flown back to London, where it will lie in state then in the Palace of Westminster. That's the building that you can see behind me, and one of the oldest parts of the palace, called Westminster Hall. It will be there for 4 days, and members of the public will be allowed to pay their respects to her there by passing by that coffin. And we understand that hundreds of thousands of people are expected to do that, and already there are officials lining this south bank of the Thames here, preparing to manage queues and make sure that those hundreds of thousands of people are in line and able to get a glimpse of Her Majesty the Queen's coffin. Now, they're being told to prepare to stand for around 48 hours if necessary, so it might be an uncomfortable wait, but clearly they're expecting a lot of people to want to do that.
All right, Laura, we'll check in with you during the course of the show as you just bring us a sense of what's to happen, even more when we look at the next couple of days leading up to Monday, when we are expecting the funeral of the Queen. That is our correspondent in London, Laura Makin-Isherwood.